One of the great things about green infrastructure, of course, is that there are a whole range of other benefits. So one of them is cooling, but then there are dramatic improvements to amenity of environment. You've got the ability to store carbon. These are really important co-benefits. And one of the reasons why the IPCC is focusing on city climate adaptation as we move forward, because a lot of the things that we can do to adapt to climate change in cities also provide benefits for mitigation. So the cooling of the city can also improve opportunities to uptake carbon into the vegetated environment of the cities, for example. So there are a whole range of co-benefits. One of the things that we found is that trees are good, end of story. Trees are the best because they provide those cooler surfaces, they provide shade. So even if you're not irrigating, they do provide considerable benefits. However, they provide even greater benefits when you are irrigating them and when you're supplementing the trees with lower shrubs and grass and so on that is also being irrigated. So the real issue, though, is keeping water up to these trees and plants. And so that's where you're harvesting stormwater and bringing that stormwater out, particularly in the summer, is really critically important. But you know, there are still issues about that water availability. So you've got to trade off, you know, how much water you have available with keeping your vegetated, or your green infrastructure alive. And you can even begin to think about, well, if you are dealing with real water shortages, then maybe the answer is simply to trot out the water irrespective of vegetation and irrigate the landscape to provide landscape cooling on those extremely critically hot days. And so that has been raised as an option in some cities around the world. And the work that we've done in Adelaide shows that irrigation alone, if you irrigate the landscape, can drop temperatures by as much as 2.5 degrees under extreme heat conditions, whether or not you've got trees involved as well. And that's simply the evaporative cooling under those conditions. So this is a slightly controversial point because, of course, we love our Australian native trees and they are fantastically well adapted to the climate we have. And certainly if keeping water supply to the vegetation is a problem, they're by far the best way to go. They do provide cooler surface temperatures, they do provide shade. They don't provide the same heat or cooling benefits as some exotic, particularly some of the deciduous trees, for example, from southern Europe, you know, that have large leaves that suck up a lot of water, that are evaporating a lot of water, and lose their leaves in winter. So you then have the advantage with some of those trees of actually allowing sun to come through to the buildings or to the surface in the winter when you might need that extra solar warmth. So it really depends on what you're trying to do, and it depends on things like water availability and so on, about which way you go. But I know it's a really controversial thing. And it's it's a particular issue in Melbourne that has a lot of exotics that are now nearing the end of their lives, and what do we replace them with?